I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
If you would like to get your song reviewed, dear listener, there's the filthy capitalist option. As Sori says, 125 gets you straight to the head of the line. You don't have to be a part of the alliance. You don't have to be part of the group.
Wait a minute.
And the biggest thing is you don't have to wait. You hop, skip, and jump right in front of everybody. 125 gets you there. You do that 3 times, and then get mashed down to the $75 rate for perpetuity.
Yes!
Also, there is a band review option. So if you've got a band and you're trying to get your band some exposure, hit me up at vinsori@gmail.com, and I'll show you the details about how to pull that off.
You can also jump on Patreon, and there is a option on the tiers to be able to get your band reviewed. Yep. Obviously, we can't lie to you, so we can't guarantee a positive review. Get what you get.
It's just rubbish.
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 That's British for garbage.
My favorite is the community option. $1 at the gate gets you in at Patreon. You get to join an alliance. The alliance joins their points together, and that helps determine what songs that we do.
The alliances hang out on Discord.
Message me on Patreon to get the link.
And they do all kinds of other cool things. They do Minecraft, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. It's really a community within the community. Anybody can go on the Village, facebook.com/Vin and Sori. There's 160,000+ people on the channel. What's cool about the Discord is that it offers a real opportunity for community connection, friendship, that type of thing.
And it's on Discord, so if you're not a Facebook person, it's for you.
You start off at $1.
Right.
Plus you get exclusives. Sori and I are working on a song. So the first 15 seconds of that was on Patreon. Also, at $15 tier and above, when we actually debut the video, they're going to be there live with us. There you are, dear listener.
Buy our merch.
Buy our merch, indeed. We are doing a DJ stream for the big homie Revo, the DJ of DJs, as you'll see up there. Peter, Paul, and Mary, Blowing in the Wind is the name of the song. Folk revival music became popular during this time. One of the most popular songwriters of the era was a man named Robert Zimmerman. While in college, he began singing and writing songs and renamed himself Bob Dylan. Whoa. Really? He got signed to the Columbia Records by producer John Hammond. Bob Dylan was initially mocked at the record company as Hammond's Folly, but he ended up being the most prolific songwriter of the age. It is his success and the Byrds' success at Columbia Records that probably lost the lovable foe of rock, Mitch Mitchell's job. This song is written by Bob Dylan, and this version is recorded by the folk trio Peter, Paul, and Mary, which was released by Warner Brother Records. Their version of the song hit number 2 on the charts. Although we often listen to the original Bob Dylan versions, at this time most people were introduced to him through the highly successful cover versions.
This ought to be very, very interesting. All right,
Peter,
guys.
Paul, and Mary, Blowing in the Wind.
Blowing in the Wind. Peter, Paul, Mary, let's go!
This song asks 9 questions. The answers to these questions could determine the fate of all of us in this next generation.
Times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
How many years can a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? How many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? How many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
How many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? How many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry? How many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died?
The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
The answer is blowing in the wind.
Wow.
Okay, this is really, really, really interesting. Congress considers the Vietnam era to be the period beginning 28 February 1961, ending 7 May 1975. This song was
Okay.
written 63.
I think.
63, it says.
Oh, it does? Okay.
Yeah. I actually heard this song when I was trying to figure out where I heard it. It was Forrest Gump.
Oh, really?
So you've never seen the movie Forrest Gump.
I actually did see the movie.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you remember this scene?
No.
So, Jenny,
Is she playing the guitar?
yes, she's playing the guitar.
Yeah.
Wasn't she playing it naked or something like that?
Yeah, so
And,
that was all I was
she
just
was
upset
trying to
that...
sing. She was trying to sing this song,
Okay.
and people were like, because she was.
Yeah.
But they weren't like listening to the art that she was making.
Yeah.
And I remember that scene, but I couldn't
So did
understand.
I didn't like it.
I didn't understand the significance of the scene because I was too young at the time.
Yeah.
But obviously that was the precursor to Forrest going off to Vietnam, because the next scene you see, he's in boot camp on the way to Vietnam after that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they were making the correlation between that and Vietnam in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But jeez, I mean, this dude Bob Dylan, he can ride his ass off. That's for sure.
Yeah. The song had such a calm sort of stop and just think for a little bit.
Yeah.
And the questions that he was asking, like, how many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? And obviously, I mean, we don't shoot cannonballs anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
times have changed, but the question still remains.
Cannonballs are banned for the wrong reason now.
Yeah, right.
They're banned because
They don't do as
we
much
have
damage.
Evolved as better
Yeah.
killers of our neighbor.
Yeah.
So, that happens. Apparently, he won the Nobel Prize for that. I mean, he should.
Yeah.
In all the songs that we've covered of him, he's always saying some real significant shit. That's one of the things. How many roads must a man walk down before you can call him a man? I was listening to something one time on Focus on the Family, and it was really interesting. They were talking about rites of passage. Mm-hmm. And they were talking about how a lot of these cultures, particularly indigenous Native American cultures, have these very specific lines of, rites of passage. Mm-hmm. And that basically a rite of passage is some horrifying or terrifying ritual that you go through that is the marker. It's a line of demarcation that, okay, you're a man now. Mm-hmm. And they had those in Native culture. The kid goes out in the forest for 3 days. He gets a spirit animal, blah, blah, blah. He fights the elements. He comes back. That was one of the craziest moments for me in Roots. In Roots, it was the story of Kunta Kinte and all the rest of it. But the first 100, 200 pages have nothing to do with America. It was just you're living in the village with Kunta. And I forgot what happened Takuta in the story because I was just so entrenched with this culture. But one of the you're not gonna like it, but one of the craziest moments to me in that book was in their particular tribe. When you turned 12, you would get circumcised. So that was like the line of demarcation for in their culture, in their particular culture, was they all got circumcised at 12.
Oh my God.
And then after they healed up, so they all got taken out of the village to some remote place. They all got circumcised. After they healed up, what they were supposed to do was at night sneak into their mother's room, take something, and then go back. And that basically proved now that he is above his mother as the man of the house.
Oh, man.
Because he was able to basically pull the wool over his mother's eyes. Again, it's a patriarchal culture, so the symbology is there. But the point is, I remember reading that book and being like, yo, there's nothing like that for especially boys. Like, that's a real significant moment when your dad tells you, okay, you're a man now. Mm-hmm. Like, and of course, I never got that kind of, affirmation.
Yeah.
It was, my older brother was essentially my father figure. Mm-hmm. But there wasn't, there was no real moment when it was like, oh, you're a man now. You know what I'm saying? And so like, that's an interesting line because a lot of people are walking around without that understanding, without that affirmation. A lot of dudes are walking around with a lot of pain. But my point is, for a lot of men, going to war is that rite of passage. There's a lot, you'd be surprised. Guys are war fighting, doing all types of crazy shit, super motivated people. And when you really drill it down, it's because that was the way they got their manhood affirmed. The military is a patriarchal kind of superstructure, and the typical stereotypes of what a man is supposed to be or whatever, you find that in higher ranking officers, and you get affirmation from them, and then they tell you that you're a badass and blah blah blah. It's like, okay, this makes me a man. So there are dudes literally willing to die, kill for that kind of affirmation. So and our government and our military and recruiters are very good at tapping into that father hunger.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
Because it creates a situation where, you're going to do that because you have no rite of passage, you have no challenge. A lot of American society is built around making shit as easy as possible.
Yep.
Especially parents to kids.
Yep. And
choosing the hard path or doing something intentionally difficult, like a lot of people in this generation don't even understand the logic of doing that. They don't even get why you should do that.
Yeah.
And so that was just an interesting line to me. How many seas must a white Dave sail before she sleeps in the sand? How many times?
Pause. I'm just going to go back to what you just said. I was in and out of that, the Johnny Depp, like, I don't know what her name is, Amber
Heard.
Yeah. So, like, I'm only seeing, like, bits and pieces and clips and stuff like that. But I was like, wow, I've spent so much time focusing on, poor parenting as far as men go, that when it's time for a man to be a man, he's not a man, and he doesn't handle himself in a relationship. And then I thought, but this whole thing that I've seen so far, the bits that I have seen, I'm like, wow, parents selfishly love to spoil their children and not give them restrictions. And like, I don't know if you heard, there's like one part where I guess she was hitting him and he was telling her he was saying her fist was closed, and she was saying, no, it wasn't. My hand was open. And anyway, like, she basically tells him, she's like, you're the one that's being a bitch about this. You're the one that's crying about this. I'm not, which was weird because it's like, yo, you're the one assaulting him. What do you mean you're not doing, why are you even saying that? And it was, she admits in that conversation that, yeah, she was hitting him, but she's like basically calling him a bitch for having a problem with it. And it's like, so he's supposed to just sit there and let you abuse him? Like that's what you want? It's just very weird.
Yeah, that's what they.
Yeah. And I know that it's not just, they're not the only case, that it happens more often. And I thought, okay, so it's very easy to see when a boy is not raised into being a man. Like you see single moms saying it all the time. I'm going to raise him to treat a woman right, blah, 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 blah. But then she goes on spoiling him his entire childhood. And she thinks because she taught him to open the door that somehow he's going to be this upstanding guy when it's time to be with a woman. And it's not. And the other thing too, that I've been realizing with raising boys is that when you tell them no, like they obviously want to push the limit with the no and they don't want to listen, but making sure they understand that when I say no, I mean no, because I'm a woman and this is their first experience of when a woman says no, I mean, does she really mean it or not? Mm-hmm. And so parents a lot of times miss that it's very important for them to follow through on that stuff. And like what I was saying was that it goes both ways, that there are women also that are not, girls that are not being trained. And so you have this spoiled brat princess child that grows up. Now she's in a marriage and she's being abusive in her marriage. Well, so there's the rite of passage thing that happens for boys, but there also has to be stuff for girls. There's a crossover that has to happen, and an understanding that now you've entered womanhood, and these childish behaviors, like we talk to our girls about it. Like, you have to use your words. You can't just bolt out of conversations and slam things or whatever, like you have to have a conversation and you have to communicate with people. And I think that like this song, it just kind of keeps bringing up these really important things, and then the answer is blowing in the wind. So it's not like we don't have it yet. We don't have anything solid yet. It's not fixed yet. And it just kind of leaves you, and having her voice saying that part about the blowing in the wind, like her voice was quieter than theirs, and it had like a quivery sort of sound, like it was shaken and it wasn't there yet. So I thought it was very well done.
Yeah, and the big thing is apathy as well. Like,
exactly. How many people have to die?
Can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see?
How many ears does it take before you actually hear?
AT and I have had this conversation about all of our, and I'm saying our, and I mean it, all of our apathy toward human suffering. Yeah. And I think there's a case for mental health. Like, I say this all the time, with the advent of the internet, it's given us a sort of divine omniscience, where we are now aware of human suffering at a scale that is completely unnatural and really outside of our lane. Yeah. You're not supposed to know every single instance of human tragedy in the world every time it happens, but because we have a 24-hour news cycle and we're in a capitalist context, on the news, you're trying to find the most grody, horrible situation possible, and you want to break that story before everybody else. And so now it's a competition to see who can display the most tragedy and the most atrocities. Well,
that's why I think it's Islamic culture or something. You were telling me about this years ago, that when, let's say, a rape takes place, they don't put the person's name out there and put all the information and the details about the rape. She was behind a dumpster, blah, 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 blah. No, what they do is they bring out, there was a rape, and then what happens to the rapist. That's what gets publicized.
Yeah, they don't talk about the rape until they're about to execute the rapist. Right. They'll kill you.
So then it puts it...
So they'll say the reason this guy got hung is because he committed this action. They don't talk about the assault and say there's a guy, a woman was assaulted and all the rest of it. Yeah. They only talk about it when there's a resolution, and obviously in those cases you go and die, bro. Mm-hmm. Go with God.
To your eternal reward.
You're gonna die. As but I agree. But what ends up happening is, because these news companies are in competition with each other,
right?
They then have to atrocitize each other to get your attention. You get the attention, and the atrocity is so horrible that you're a little bit desensitized to it, so that when you turn the channel and the other news company has an atrocity, you've already built up this scar tissue. As I've said over and over again, I'm pretty certain that all of us, there's going to be some study next in 20 years or something, and it's going to show us that we've all essentially destroyed our own minds. We've all harmed ourselves. You know, people watching George Floyd get choked to death, all the rest of this shit. That's why I tell people, like, don't watch those videos, especially black people. Don't watch these videos, these cops. But again, these news people, they will put all that death in front of you and then shake their heads like they're upset about it, when in reality they're excited about it. And like, we see this when we watch the true crime documentary. There's always some slimy guy in the media that reported the story, and you could tell that he or she enjoyed.
It's like exciting. They're like, and this happened
because
blah,
they
blah,
know
blah.
what's going to happen, and now they're on Netflix, so they know. So my point is, our apathy. On the one hand, I can understand our apathy in this generation, because at some level I think it's got to be a defense mechanism. But on the other hand, the people that are in control of where they want the world to go understand that and take advantage of it. So right now, 500,000 Yemeni kids. Somebody just posted this on the Middle America. It was like a 2-year-old Yemeni girl dead next to her dad because the Saudis had bombed the shit out of them, with our bombs, by the way, and killed them. And nobody cares because they're not Ukraine. And you heard news reporters say this is not like an uncivilized place like Afghanistan or something. These are people that look like us relative to the Ukrainians. So they're saying, it's not all those savages in Afghanistan. There's people that look like us. They're European. I mean, oh my God, and it hits different because it's us. And there's that kind of apathy where I'm like, that's completely and totally deplorable. Completely and totally deplorable. Whereas, you know, in other circumstances, you know, we just don't. Our government is banking on our apathy. You know, that's why, to me, you know. Look, the whole Ukraine situation did make me very popular, but I don't care. It's like, how long have we been talking about all the bodies we stacked up in Afghanistan? Nobody cared.
Yeah.
That's why when our government starts telling us to feel bad for a certain group of people, I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Because you didn't give a fuck about Afghanistan, you didn't care about Iraq, you didn't care about Niger, you didn't care about Somalia, you didn't care about Syria. Why the fuck are we supposed to care about these people now? You have an agenda. So it's very, very hard. It's very, very hard to navigate the emotional landscape of how we're supposed to feel, because on the one hand, you have got to protect your mental health, and you got to live happy, right? But on the other hand, if we're too apathetic, then our government takes advantage of us and brings us in all these wars or whatever, because they know they're not going to get the resistance. Because I'm convinced it's one of the reasons why we don't get traction on Medicare for all, we don't get traction on student loan debt. It's because as long as you're hamstrung with these financial crises, you cannot confront your government because you don't have the emotional bandwidth to handle it.
Yeah.
So it's a very, 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 very difficult balance to toe. And that's why I don't think any of us have figured it out yet, and that's why it's blowing in the wind.
Yep.
You know, I mean, I certainly haven't been able to figure out how to balance all those two to be a complete person is my goal. But this again, I just feel like it's another classic song, man. This is a 10 for me.
Oh wow. 9.6 for me.
It's a really, really, really good song, really deep, and we could talk about it for hours, but nobody wants to do that. Okay. Really, really good song. Good song, Revo, and thank you for the update. We are still cooking, dear listeners. Stay where you are. Don't move. Vin out.
Sorry out.
Go.